Hi, everybody. Happy Women's History Month. Thank you so much for joining. This is our third roundtable for Women's History Month, where today we're going to talk about law school and the law school experience and what it means to actually apply to law school, study for the Lsats, and teach at law school. So today we have two guests. We have a couple of guests who will be joining us later on, but I want to first introduce you to Sydney St. Pierre, who is a law student here in New York City at CUNY Law School. So Sydney, can you tell us where you're from, where you're studying, what you want to concentrate on in your legal career once you graduate, and your top tips for surviving law school?
Yeah, so my name is Sydney. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana, and I chose CUNY because I'm really interested in doing immigration law, and they have a really good clinic for it. So that kind of brought me here. And I actually moved in August during the pandemic, so I haven't been to school yet, but I am in the area. I am excited and hopeful that in August we can maybe be in person, at least part-time. But I would say the biggest obstacle and like what makes law school the hardest is the learning curve in the first semester and just understanding what you're kind of looking for in your readings and getting accustomed to all of the work. So it's just a matter of getting used to it and putting the time in. So yeah, that's about it.
How is law school different from your undergraduate career?
I would say that in undergrad, you're kind of assigned readings and assignments that don't weigh as heavily. And in law school, if you missed like 5 pages of a reading, I would say you probably don't know what's going on in class and you don't know what you need to understand the lecture. So you really have to stay with it every day. If you fall a day behind or a class behind, it feels like it takes a week to catch up. So it's really important to not only read the assignments, but you have to do your research while you're doing it and actually understand what's happening, or else you're not going to know in class. So I'd say it's definitely more intense and you have to keep up with it a lot more.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think that your experience of studying remotely is a little bit different than mine and Elizabeth's. So Elizabeth, tell us about where you're from, where you went to law school, where you're going to be teaching in the fall, what your practice area is, and your top tips for surviving law school and surviving being an immigration lawyer.
Sure. I am an immigration lawyer in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I primarily handle humanitarian immigration in my practice. Also do family and removal defense, and that means deportation defense for those of you that don't do immigration or don't know a lot about immigration law. And I went to Marquette University in law school in Milwaukee, and that's where I'm going to be teaching immigration law in the fall coming up. So I'm very excited to teach the class. I took the class at the same university, and an attorney that is just retiring now from my alma mater is, I'm sorry, retiring now from my alma mater is also retiring from my law office. So I know the sort of the way the class has been run, but I'm doing it a little differently. And I'm really excited. I'm going to be running it as a workshop. And so we'll have a lot more hands-on work, which is something that I think was something I would have liked a lot more when I was in law school, to just get more of a hands-on education, just to have a few more classes like that where you actually produce work that is similar to what you'd be expected to produce working for a law firm. And I would say, to answer your question about some of my top tips for law school, to try to get as much practical experience as you can, whether it's in a workshop style class or an internship or summer jobs, or working for a firm as a clerk or a judge as a clerk, just any of that hands-on stuff. I remember my first summer job as a law student was actually a volunteer opportunity where I got credit through school. And the first day that I went in to work at, nonprofits, are always understaffed. And so they just sent me, the first day they sent me in with clients and said, you're going to write an affidavit with these clients. And I said, what's an affidavit? So how do I write one of those? So it's really helpful to get as much of that experience as you can as a law student so that you're not seeing that in your first days of practice as an attorney. So that's the number one tip. And then just for surviving, I took law school really seriously. I worked really hard, and I pushed myself really hard. And that's important if you're looking for a job at, let's say, a big law firm. But in retrospect, looking back, I see that I went to, my plan all along was to open my own firm. And I had the support necessary to do that. I had a very unique situation and great mentors. And so when I look back now, I think I was going to hire myself anyways, whether I was in the top. I did graduate in the top 15%, but who cares? No, that doesn't really matter in my daily practice at all. And I maybe could have had a little bit more fun or sleep while I was in law school. So I think it's important to think about that too. What are your goals? And is it really necessary to be the top of your class? Because if it's not, then don't put that extra burden on yourself. But for some people it is, so.
I think that's excellent advice. I think a lot of the times especially when you're graduating from undergrad and going straight into law school, you're so focused on getting good grades that sometimes you miss out on the multidimensional experience of being a law student and networking and getting to know your legal environment and exploring the different professional options that you have post-graduation. Not everybody wants to work for a big firm. Not everybody wants to work for a nonprofit. Some people already have that entrepreneurial spirit. So I think that you gave excellent, excellent advice. Better late than never, Amina and Ingalls, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm so excited to hear about your experiences, especially you, Amina. You're an activist for aspiring law students, and you are a law student mentor. So can you tell us a little bit about where you went to law school, what type of law you practice, your Facebook group, and how you support aspiring law students?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I went to Regent University School of Law in Virginia Beach, Virginia. I'm still a new attorney myself. In October 16th, actually, I just made a year as a practicing attorney. So I'm still a very new attorney. Now I'm a full-time public defender, and I also practice and have aspirations to have my own practice as well in intellectual property, which is, copyrights and trademarks, definitely not patent law, but copyrights and trademarks, business law, forming business entities and contracts as well.
So how do you support law students?
So I have a group called Future Black Lawyers, and I also have an Instagram page called Black Girl at Law. And this is targeted to Black students who have always had inspirations of being attorneys, but have been too intimidated to take those steps. So I've decided to create a group and a safe space where they can ask questions that they wouldn't feel so comfortable asking in a classroom, maybe even sometimes a professor, if they feel as though they're supposed to know the answer already. They can ask that question in that space, and any challenges that they may be having as a Black person in the legal community as well.
Fantastic. I think that what you're doing is so important. I'm not sure if everyone knows the statistics, but there's only 5% of women who are partners in major law firm. Of that 5%, only 0.2% are women of color. So it's very, very important to advocate for and serve as a leader and an example to women, minority women who want to take that leap, don't know how to take that leap, have never met an attorney or seen what a law firm does and how it operates. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so active with my internships in recruiting women and minority women and making them understand the processes of running a law firm, because I think all women should have an entrepreneurial spirit to run your own practice, or at least be exposed to it. And number two, to understand that legal excellency or that philosophy of dedication to legal excellency is paramount to your success as an attorney.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much, Amina, for all the work that you do. And hopefully later on during this chat, you can give us your Facebook group name. And I know you do weekly Zoom calls.
Yes.
And hopefully you can give us your website and your Instagram again so people can connect with you.
Sure, thank you.
Ingalls. Ingalls is an international lawyer who went to law school in the States. So Ingalls, tell us where you went to law school in Brazil. Tell us your law school experience here in New York as an LLM student, and tell us the type of law that you practice. And also, as a bonus, tell us what a foreign legal consultant is.
Well, my name is Ingles Aguiar. I was born and raised in Brazil. I went to school in Brazil, Catholic University, and I took 2 masters of laws in Brazil, in business and labor law. And years later, I decided to take my master of laws here in US. So I applied for Fordham University. I don't know if I can say the names.
Yes, of course.
And Cardozo Law School, and I got accepted by both. So my experience here was interesting because the legal system is completely different. In Brazil, you have civil law, and here you have common law. So the decisions here are based on precedents. So in Brazil, no, you have law for everything. For everything. It's crazy. So for me here, the most difficult thing in going to law school here were not the subjects, because I could make comparison with the subjects that I took in my law school, but the Socratic technique of cold calling, it was terrified for me. It was terrified for me. And besides that, I don't think it was hard, because I had experience in Brazil, which makes it much easier. But another thing that I also experienced here was the difficulty of communicating. For example, I speak Portuguese and eu falo português, and English is something that I'm still learning, and I feel that I will learn forever. So besides that, I think my experience was great.
So tell us about your profession as a foreign legal consultant in New York and the process to becoming a foreign legal consultant.
Well, I'm a lawyer in Brazil and I'm a lawyer in Portugal. So my base to apply for to get a legal consultant license here was to get both license and apply to get this license here. So it was interesting because I need to file a lot of petitions, recommendation letters. Now that I got the license, I'm able to give legal advice in New York based on Brazil law. So I have this limitation now, and because I'm not admitted by the bar yet, and I can give only legal advice all matters relate to Brazil.
Yeah, and I think that this is something that we don't talk about a lot. I've worked in law firms with foreign legal consultants before, so it still allows you the ability to open up your own firm and practice in that very limited area of law. So you can still have a thriving career working with the area of law that you worked in previously in Brazil and in Portugal.
Yes, so here with this license, I'm able to give legal advice in Brazil law and Portuguese law. And you can open your own firm. You don't need to for example, take the bar, in my case. But I have limitations because I can't also give advice in American law. But it's one way to continue your career as an international lawyer.
Yeah, and being in New York, that's such a diverse and international city. I think it's great for attorneys and international attorneys to know what their options are. For example, in New York State, to become an attorney, you don't necessarily need to go to law school for the full 3 years. You can do 1 year of law school university or 1 year of law school, and then do 3 years of law study in a firm. So there's many different routes that you can take to become an attorney and practice law. And I feel like at least when I was going to law school, it wasn't something that I was aware of. Like I didn't even know that in New York State, you could become an attorney with only 1 year's worth of law school experience. So I'll just give a quick introduction about me. I went to Lewis and Clark Law School in Oregon. I actually graduated from law school in 2 years. I didn't want to stay the full 3 years. I have always been interested in having a multi-dimensional experience. So while I was in school, I was interning at the Portland Art Museum because I love art and creativity, and I represent artists. And I mentored. I mentored a high school student from the inner city of Portland. At the time when I was attending law school, Portland was the whitest state in the nation. I was the only mixed person in my class. My good friend Myra, who was in one of the roundtables, was the only Black woman in our class, and one of my best friends was the only Latina woman. So there were only 3 women of color in my class of 150 students. And that encouraged me to really go out and mentor and show that, hey, you're just like me. You can go to law school just like I did. I'm from immigrant parents, very poor background, and I was able to do it. And it was important for me during my law school experience to be that example and be that brainstorming person who can ask questions and not be afraid of somebody judging you for the answer. So during law school, I actually studied abroad in China. So I have a certificate in Chinese business law and Chinese civil law. I studied at La Sorbonne in Paris, international copyright and international contract. And I really was focused on having that multidimensional experience. My grandfather is a judge in Côte d'Ivoire, and I always knew in the back of my head that I would do something on my own. I didn't have the confidence at the time in the beginning of my legal career, but I always knew eventually I would be working for myself. So in hindsight, choosing to attend a school that had a high ranking, I don't think is, with the knowledge that I have today, would not be my focus. And I encourage people who are thinking about law school to not really focus on rankings, but focusing on the mentorship aspect, focusing on the networking aspect, focusing on the internships and the opportunities to connect with other law students in a meaningful way and other more experienced practitioners so that you can make those early mistakes in your career. So once you graduate and you pass the bar, you're in a more confident position to move forward in your career. So I'm always advocating for really exploring your options and really being introspective and trying to understand in your heart of hearts what you think you might want to do, because I understand that we change all the time and that's normal. Really try to have those structured conversations with yourself so that you make the most strategic decisions for yourself during law school. So with that being said, what did you guys study in undergrad, and what do you think are the best majors for becoming a lawyer? Sydney, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so I studied political science, which I've actually found very helpful in law school, just kind of understanding the public policy aspect of it and understanding kind of the structure of our law system, because I was able to take a few pre-law classes. So I did take like a constitutional law class, which isn't the same substance as what you get in law school, but kind of having like a layout of how it kind of works in a more simple way. But I think political science really helped. And I would say too that I did Model UN in undergrad, with just understanding too the structure of that, because it comes up in law school in some of my classes. So I think that was also really helpful. And then I know people that did like psychology, and I think depending on what kind of law you want to do, like if you want to work with people and like understand certain social groups, I think that's also really helpful. But I think political science definitely gave me a foot up going into law school. So I'm appreciative that I did that.
Elizabeth, what did you study in undergrad?
Like Sydney, and I think so many other pre-law students, I started in political science, and I also did Middle Eastern studies. And so I was really focused on Middle Eastern politics. But I think it's a great background, and I can, reiterate a lot of the things that Sydney said, but I think there are so many possibilities. Writing is critical, although whatever you think you know about writing when you go to law school, it's completely different. Lawyers write completely differently than any other group of people, and your whole way of writing will have to change. And the sooner you accept that, the easier. It was hard for me. I was used to being considered a good writer, and I really had to adapt my way of writing in law school right away during 1L year. But so I think having a strong background, whatever you're doing in writing, is helpful. But I think, communications is important. As attorneys, we have to be good communicators, and some of the things that, that, I'm sorry, English. Sorry, I'm sorry for butchering your name. Some of the things that you were saying, I think, are great points, because when you're walking into a courtroom, you have to be on your feet, ready to go. And so even though we hate doing that Socratic method, it is in a way building us up for that experience of having to think on your feet and be prepared. And a judge might ask you a question that was not at all what you had prepared to talk about that day. And you have to be ready to say something that is intelligent in response to that, or be confident enough to say, Judge, I wasn't prepared for that question. May I have a moment? And then gather yourself, but you have to be ready to handle that. And so I think being ready for that public speaking is important too. So communications could be a great background. And if you're looking at going into patent law, then having a science background or technology background or biomedical background of some sort is really important too. So there's just, you really, to Elektra's point, you really need to think about where you might want to end up, and what maybe your strengths are already and what your weaknesses are, and then try to use that to inform your decision, because there's no 100% right or wrong answer to that. And even if you study French literature, that might be awesome, and you could be a fabulous lawyer.
Amina, what did you study in undergrad?
So I actually studied communications in undergrad, but when I first went to college, I had dreams of becoming an attorney, but I wasn't confident enough, which is why I also think mentorship is so important. But it turns out communications helped me a lot. My public speaking, I'm a litigator now. Being in the court, you get a lot of curveballs thrown your way, and you have to know how to think on your feet, as previously mentioned. And to that point, when I was applying to law school, I knew an advisor, and I spoke to this advisor. I told them how worried and concerned I was that I wasn't a poli-sci major in my undergrad or English major in my undergrad. And he said that he's had his most successful students, some of them were music majors and dance majors, and just those majors that you wouldn't traditionally or ordinarily think goes or coincides with being an attorney. So if you are already in law school, anyone out there that is already in college, I should say, and applying to law school, don't feel discouraged and feel like you have to change your major, because it is still very possible. However, writing skills and public speaking skills are essential, whether you're a transactional attorney or a litigator.
I agree 100%. Ingalls, tell us how law school works in Brazil, because I know that law school in civil law countries is like your major, right? You do that at the undergraduate level, and then you become an attorney.
Law school, philosophy, economics, communication, languages, everything in one setting, let's say like that. So for me, I think it's important to know philosophy, because it helps you to think outside of the box and to not repeat what everybody else is saying. So have this critical think. I think philosophy is very important. Also, I agree with everybody that says communication is very important. Not only communication, but language, and be able to writing and be able to speak and to communicate. It's very important. I just want to make a observation. The system in Brazil, law school in Brazil, law schools in Brazil do not have this Socratic method, the cold calling. So what did she? I can see a name very well.
Amina.
Nina.
Amina.
Amina. So I completely agree with her. but it's just, for me, it was a shock because it was a completely different view. But I agree with you, it's a very good practice, because you have to be, for example, in front of the judge, like you said, and you have to come out with one answer, and you have to be prepared. So, but majors, philosophy, language, and also history. I think history gives you a holistic view of decisions, of all the decisions abroad. So you can, I think everything helps you to have a critical thinking.
Yeah, and can I just add to that, please, really quickly, as far as being if you want to be a patent attorney, I did look up the requirements for taking the patent bar, and one of the requirements is that you had to have majored in specific fields. And I even for a slight second thought about going back to school to get that, but I'm not going back to school for anything or anyone. But so if you are interested in becoming a patent attorney, this is something that you really need to make sure you're planning for ahead of time and know the requirements required to sit for that bar.
I agree.
Yes.
That's part of being strategic. So I actually studied filmmaking in undergrad, and in high school, growing up, I didn't go to a school that like emphasized on like multiple choice questions. It was basically just writing up until, even throughout college, writing and filmmaking in college. And I always tell people, get a weird major. Like, who cares about poli-sci and all these typical majors that you see people studying in preparation of going to law school? You really want to develop that multi-dimensional approach to your being, to who you are as a person, because that is going to enrich your practice of the law. Poli-sci and all of these nuances you can learn in your law school career and as an attorney. But really that depth of knowledge of honestly being a polymath, right? Being able to have discussions about different things with different people successfully, I think is really important, because you're going to have different types of clients who speak different types of languages, who have different experiences. And great attorneys are able to connect with their clients and extrapolate the right facts to be able to tell that story. So when people, sometimes question if I, miss doing creative work, as a filmmaker, as an actress, I say no, because I'm a very, very creative attorney. I tell stories every single day. I'm not the protagonist in the stories. I'm more the architect of the stories. But being an attorney is a very, very creative endeavor that really forces you to eliminate the box. Like for us, I feel like, attorneys who really understand and espouse the nobility of our profession, the critical thinking skills necessary to get an answer for your client, really do excellent creative work. And every single attorney that I know, especially immigration attorneys, they have that creative spirit in them to tell the story effectively and to figure out the creative solutions to eliminate that box and produce the result for the client. So for those of you who are watching, challenge yourself, get a weird major. I once represented a violin restorer. He doesn't play the violin, he just restores violins. So think about really exploring the depth of who you are, because that's going to add a layer to your lawyering once you become an attorney. So how did you guys study for the LSATs? And did you take the LSATs? Ingalls?
I didn't take the LSAT. I didn't need to take, because I was able to bring all my education credentials from Brazil. So the only thing that I need to do different to apply to a law school here was my personal statement. But besides that, I didn't need to take any exam.
Amina, how did you study for the LSAT?
Well, I studied while I was actually working full time. I studied for the LSAT with the Kaplan textbook, some practice questions online. However, in hindsight, I really wish that I would have taken the time to invest in a course, because that is how I learn best, especially if this, material is new to me. And I truly wish I would have taken more practice questions. That was the key to my success on the bar exam. Just taking the practice questions. I could read all day, long, but familiarizing myself with the practice questions, how to tackle them. Like you said, in undergrad and high school, sometimes multiple choice questions seemed like an easy way out because one of these four is the right answer. But in law school and on the bar exam, if your eyes shoot directly to the answers, you can get confused very quickly. So just learning to read the call of the question first, and then read the question itself, mark up the question accordingly, and just keeping in mind what the question is asking you for so that you can go in and pick out the right question and get out of there.
I agree. I hate multiple choice. I always psych myself out. I feel like I can answer and justify successfully any of the responses. That's why I hate multiple choice.
Yes.
Sydney, you're the most recent LSAT taker. Tell us about studying for the LSAT.
So I actually did take an in-person Kaplan course, which I found was really helpful because you're kind of disciplined to learn even the things on the test that you probably didn't want to focus on if you weren't very into that subject. But I found that was really helpful, but that was only kind of the tip of the iceberg because what I did was I was trying to take a practice test for a few months, like every Saturday morning to kind of get used to. The biggest thing for me was the timing and knowing how much time you have left and figuring it out. But the course was helpful, but I would say that was only a small percentage. You have to really commit yourself to putting in the hours and practicing it and getting it down because it's a rough test. So it's a lot of work if you do a course, but also outside of the course and just dedicating yourself to practicing because it's a big indicator of where you'll get in school. So.
Yeah, as a friendly reminder, having a poor LSAT score is not any sort of indication on whether or not you're going to be a kick-ass attorney. So even if you are a little bit intimidated by the test, don't worry, it means nothing. It's just a step in your law school and your legal journey. Elizabeth, how did you study?
I actually studied from the book. When I went to undergrad, I didn't know that I was going to go to law school afterwards, and I was trying to decide. Honestly, when I graduated from undergrad, it was 2005, and the economy was terrible. And I went into the library and pulled out the study book for the LSAT and the GREs. And looked at both of them and spent some time thinking about it and thought, the LSAT looks like it'd be fun because I love logic. So I just started doing practice tests just for fun to see if I wanted to do it. And then I was like, I'm doing pretty good at this. So I think I'll just keep going. So that was like a big part of how I made my choice about what to do after undergrad. And so that it was just self-study for about 10 weeks, really. I mean, the book was a 6-week book, but I just took my time with it. But I never took the bar exam. So that is, I know I am a real lawyer, but in Wisconsin, we have something called the bar privilege. We are the only state that has this. And if you go to law school in the state of Wisconsin and you practice in the state of Wisconsin, you don't have to take the bar exam. So I didn't have to spend my whole summer studying for a bar.
So do you have reciprocity with other states?
We do, but it depends on how, each state has their rules. So if I want to go to Minnesota or something like that, I have to study or I have to practice for a certain number of years first. Whatever the individual state decides.
Well, that's a great pro-life tip. If you don't want to take the bar and you're thinking of practicing any aspect of federal law, you can go to school in Wisconsin and not suffer through studying for the bar.
Yes.
Yeah. You have to actually practice.
Is that for LLM students in Wisconsin?
I don't know. I didn't even look at the LLM.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think so.
That's a great tip. That's great to know. Again, it's about like understanding your different options. Like you don't necessarily need to go to law school, and now we know you don't necessarily need to sit for the bar exam. So these are just things to keep into perspective when you're thinking about becoming an attorney. So I actually took a Kaplan in-person course my last semester of college because I applied, during that last semester of college. And I was very demoralized because I suck at multiple choice exams. I'm very, very bad at that. I psych myself out a lot. I'm one of those like overthinkers, and it's just horrible. And I remember like my brother is he just retired, a professional soccer player. And I remember him like being home visiting, and he would study with me in my LSAT book, and he would get all the questions right, and I would get all the questions wrong. And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to be able to study for this exam, get into law school, and become a lawyer. Like if my brother who just plays soccer can do it and I can't, what does that really say about me in terms of like my intelligence, right? And I was one of those people who took the LSAT twice, actually hoping to get a higher score the second time. I think they were very similar. There's like a maybe 4-point difference, very marginal difference. And it was super, super painful, the test part of applying to law school. What I really enjoyed about applying to law school was the personal statement. And I don't think that, I wish that we would put a lot of emphasis on the storytelling, the creative storytelling aspect of the law school application, because we all know we need to apply for the LSAT, we all know, or sit for the LSAT, and we all know that we have to, get good grades in undergrad. But I feel like nobody really talked about the importance of that personal statement, that free-flowing opportunity to really communicate who you are, why you matter, why your voice is different, and why they need you in their institution. So do you guys remember your personal statement, what you guys wrote about? And if you feel comfortable, do you want to share it? Amina?
I do remember my personal statement. I would rather not share it. It was about an experience I had in college, and I'm very close with the person again now. But it was a very transformative experience. But if I had an opportunity to write my personal statement again, I would have emphasized on why I would be a great attorney. Because, law school is only temporary. I finished in 2.5 years. But some people, for most people, it's 3 years. Some people, they take 4 years. It's only temporary. But as we all know, being an attorney is usually referred to as a fraternity, right? And it's a family, So why would they want me as a part of their family? These professors, maybe not so much people in admissions. They're probably not all practicing attorneys or attorneys at all. But just when I have mentees that come to me, or even friends, whether they view me as a mentor or not, that ask me how they should craft their personal statement and what would help them stand out, I always tell them that you want to write your personal statement in a way that not only tells them, like you said, about who you are, but why you deserve to be an attorney and why you would matter as an attorney, how you can make an impact on clients. And it doesn't all necessarily have to be public interest, such as public defense, but this isn't a career where we serve, contrary to popular belief. We serve our clients no matter how much they're paying us, if any at all. So that would be my piece of advice. If you're writing a personal statement, why do you matter, and why should you be an attorney?
Elizabeth, do you want to share your personal statement?
I can't say that I fully remember it. It was a long time ago, like 2007 that I wrote it. So I think it was probably about like just coming into taking school seriously, because I didn't take school seriously at all until I was a sophomore in high school. And the fact that most people didn't really take me very seriously as a student because I didn't take myself very seriously. But I think that's what it was about. I could be wrong.
Still a good lesson. Take yourself seriously so that maybe other people can take you seriously.
It's funny when I run into people that I knew from school now, from high school, they're always shocked to find out that I'm an attorney, because I really didn't put much effort into school before. And so they're kind of amazed that I did at some point.
And you prove them wrong. Ingalls, what was your personal statement, if you want to share?
Yeah, sure. I think the most important for me to put in my personal statement was my story of life. I think the personal statement allows you to tell your own story and show why you are different from the other applicants. So in my opinion, many people have good or great grades, but what makes you different from the other applicant, in my case, was my story. I came from one poor family, very poor family, and in one environment that was how can I say that, that was my mom was a victim of domestic violence. So I brought everything together to show that I overcame all the bad situations and I became an attorney in Brazil, and I was able to go further, and I showed that my skills and my career path fit on the program, and this is why I want to go to that school, for example. So my story of life, my family, and the challenge that I overcame, and who I became. And if I overcame to everything bad in my life, I could go to a law school and keep fighting for my goals. You know, I think was the major idea of my statement was show I am a fighter. I'm here to win this battle, and I know your program to the law school at the time. Your program can make me win. So give me a chance, and I will show you. I think it was.
And you got accepted to both schools, right? You got accepted to both Fordham and
yes. I was lucky because I applied only for 2 law schools, Fordham and Cardozo Law School, and I was accepted by both. The critical decision was which one, and initially I want Fordham, but the financial situation was an issue. Fordham gave me, for example, 30% of scholarship due to your academic performance, they called. And Cardozo gave me 50%. So my option was Cardozo. And I'm happy with my decision.
Yeah, it's a great school.
Mm-hmm.
Sydney, do you want to share your personal statement?
Yeah, sure. So I think that your personal statement is kind of the most special piece of your application because, I mean, everyone has a number for a GPA and your Lsat score. So when I guess whoever's looking at the application, even if you have a high number, like you have a high number, whatever, but in your personal statement, you can really show who you are and who you are as a person, and that you're not just a high number, a low number, a medium number, but you do have ambition and that you have this goal for yourself. And I think that was something important to me. And even now, before tests and stuff, I will read my personal statement for motivation to remember why I'm here, and just remember to stay driven, because it is hard to being at home and not even being at school and seeing other people around me. So it's hard, like in my small apartment, to be like, what am I doing? So I'll pull it out and I'll read it. So I think that's the most important part of your application. I don't know in a sense of like what they're looking for. I guess it depends on your school, but in a sense of to remember what you're doing it for, and to set yourself aside from just the number. So I think it's a big deal.
I want to just, if I can, make one more point. And this is from talking to actual professors who I know that have sat on the committees. It seems like such an obvious point, but you really also need to very carefully proofread your statement and have someone else read it, because I think something that is shockingly common are errors, grammatical mistakes, and just misuse of language, or people trying to use language that is maybe unnatural for them, or communicate something in a higher, with a higher level vocabulary that isn't authentic. And so I think that's really important, to just speak authentically as well, and use words that you're comfortable using, and not just trying to impress people, because it comes through.
Yeah, I think I read when I was applying to law school, like how to get into law school or how to get into Harvard Law School. I had a bunch of those books, and I think that one of the things that they said is they said the exact same thing you did, Elizabeth, to just proofread, make sure that it's properly drafted, and don't use legalese. That was like the big thing I remember. Don't use legalese when you're writing your personal statement. I fully echo Sydney and Ingles's ideas about presenting who you are to them. I don't think in my personal statement I ever talked about why I wanted to be a lawyer or anything about the law. My personal statement was a day in my life. So when I was in college, I had a great college experience. I loved university. I was one of those people who did everything on campus and everything off campus. So I went to a Head Start program here in New York, and Head Start is for kids who come from poor families, and they just start school a little bit earlier to give them a head start in life. So I graduated from a Head Start program, and I was volunteering at the Head Start program while I was in my last semester of college. I was also interning for a show, maybe you guys know of it, Super Nanny. So I was interning at Super Nanny, and I was babysitting, and I was living on my own in Brooklyn. I was living in Bushwick when it wasn't cool. So a day in my life was going to classes, and I would talk about, I took a satire class my last year of college, riding my bike all around the city, going from, my campus on the Upper East Side, and going from the campus on the Upper East Side to, Head Start in Spanish Harlem, where I graduated. And I wanted to go back and volunteer and show them that, like, hey, you can graduate from this program and actually go to college and go to law school. And then bike ride back to Brooklyn, where I lived, where I had my film collection. And I really just wanted to show them the different aspects of who I am, the multidimensionality of who I am, that I'm all of these different ingredients of who I am is going to make an excellent pie, which is, the lawyer pie. It was important for me to speak in that voice and to take them in that journey with me. I wanted them to really understand me beyond like my grades or my Lsat score, because I don't think I had a very high Lsat score. So it was very critical for me for them to understand the journey of my day and all the things that I do, because I wanted to show them, to persuade them that I would do all those things at their institution. So for anyone who's watching, I really would advise you to really think creatively and critically about what it is that you have that they need, because they need you, and you want to demonstrate that to them. So with that being said, what did you guys love or hate about law school or the law school experience? Sydney, is there anything that you love or hate about law school?
Well, this doesn't relate to any of you, but the thing I hate about law school right now is that I'm not there, and I haven't been on my campus yet. And it's tough, because I feel like you're by yourself. So if you were in person, like before class, you'd have like that small talk, and you would be like, how do you feel about this? Or after a test, like, how do you feel? But now you're kind of like, did everyone else do great and I didn't? Like, you don't know, because you don't. And I haven't been able to develop friendships yet here. So especially moving here in August, I'm really looking forward to, fingers crossed, being in person in the fall. But I really do like the challenge of it, because I feel like towards the end of undergrad, it was kind of like just a bunch of electives and it wasn't much of a challenge. So now being able to apply myself, and it is really hard, and just completely being out of your comfort zone, especially, I mean, we still do cold calls on Zoom, which is a little different, but we still do it. And just like not knowing what to say, or just being completely out of your element, I think it makes you really strong, not only as an attorney, but as a person. I think at the end of this experience, I'll have grown a lot. I feel like I already have. So
Has your school given you guys any sort of support, mental health support for the fact that you guys are studying from home?
They do, and they'll do like wellness events, but it's also hard because it's also virtual. So if you've been in class all day on Zoom, even if it would be good for you, you don't really want to log into another thing. Like in person, it'd be easy to like, oh, I'm at school, I might as well attend this. But after staring at a screen all day, it's hard. And they do offer us like counseling and stuff, which is nice, but it is hard, I guess, to fully address it without being all together. So hopefully the fall, we'll see. They haven't said anything, but.
Have you seen any classmates in person since you began in school?
I've met 2 or 3 people in my class, just like we've met up on the weekends a few times. So, but it's also hard because not everyone even moved to New York. So most people are kind of spread out across the country, and then there's some international students too. So not everyone is even here, and it's been cold. So like if you want to see people outside, that hasn't been an option. But I have been fortunate to meet a couple of people. So hopefully that changes soon. And when people start moving in the summer, maybe we can, like get together in a park or something and just have just like that sense of community. It would be so nice, I think, especially for such a big undertaking. So hopefully that happens soon.
I really hope that you guys can go back to studying in person, because that, just like you mentioned, it's such a huge part of the law school experience, developing that network of people. I remember for me, what was so helpful during law school is like my study groups, because I'm the type of person I need to like talk it out to really understand it. Like I need to have somebody tell me like, no, Elektra, you're wrong, or yes, Elektra, you're on the right track. And I applaud you because you're doing such a fantastic job. Guys, Sydney is going to be interning at the firm this summer, and I really, really love her go-getter attitude. I really love that she, was persistent and emailed me and is willing to learn business immigration, even though she might have different focus areas. So, in spite of the pandemic, she's on an excellent track to becoming a thoughtful, sensitive, excellent attorney. And I'm very happy to be on her journey.
Thank you.
Amina, is there anything that you loved or hated in law school?
So before I just want to say, Sydney, hats off to you. Truly, I'm very happy for you. But what I hated in law school is that it was very high stress. I don't want to curse, but usually I say law school was a B, because it was very high stress. And then what I didn't like is that I didn't know where I stood in the class until we got our grades back for our finals, which could be very stressful, especially when you're used to taking quizzes. And especially when you're being called in class, you're not necessarily getting it. You're highlighting the wrong sections of a case. And it seems as though everyone else understands the case and the course and the material except for you. So that was very high stress. What I did love about, and then as far as my personal experience, as far as what I hated, I didn't do enough research into my school as far as the culture. My school is very conservative, very Republican, and it was fine until the 2016 election. And then to me, I just felt a distrust from my classmates, and I found myself having to vet them one by one to see, who's really racist. And I've received some comments, but I'm not going to take it too much time. And then what I loved about law school is that our professors and our deans really did go out of their way and make it a point to empower us. From the student orientation, they told us not to view ourselves as law students, but lawyers in training, and that we are practicing law from the outset. So even as a 1L on the very first day in your very first class, you are practicing law and you're a lawyer in training. And the dean would tell us to view ourselves as his colleagues. So that was very empowering, something that I held on to, especially for studying for the bar. As I sat in the room to take the bar exam, I just kept saying to myself, I'm just here to get my license. I'm already an attorney. I'm just here to get my license. And that was very empowering for me, and something that a message that I share with anyone that, any of my mentees or anyone that's currently in law school now.
Love that mindset. Mindset is almost just as important as doing well in school. It's what will take you from here to here. So I completely agree. Ingalls, what did you love about your LLM program? What did you hate about it?
Class, watch the environment, and studying U.S. laws and subjects was fantastic. But as I said before, I hated the cold calling. So it was terrifying for me, but it's part of the process. Now I learn, and I really appreciate everything that I learned.
Elizabeth?
Yeah, I guess to echo what Amina said, I definitely I think of law school in a way as a hazing ritual for being a lawyer. It is very challenging, like mentally challenging, just grating on you. But it gets you to the point where now, as an attorney, you're seasoned to handle whatever crazy situation might come up in a day. Like, it's kind, and it's similar to parenting. You just deal with whatever craziness. Like, there's no, it might feel like too much, but you just have the confidence in yourself to know, even if it's too much, I can still handle it. Even if I'm going to have to stay up till midnight and then wake up again at 5 a.m. to finish the reading and be really, really tired, I'm going to be okay and get through it. So I think it's very unpleasant in that way. And maybe like I said before, I could have made it a little less unpleasant if I just would have said it doesn't really matter as much as I think it does. But the thing that I love about law school, or loved about my experiences, were, first of all, the relationships that I built. I still have a network of attorneys that I went to law school with that were in my study group, and we're still really good friends. And actually, I just bought the game Descent, which is sort of
the one I bought Amanda.
Pardon?
The one I bought Amanda.
Yeah, I did. Yep, that's where I got it from. Yep, I just bought that game, and my law school friends and I are going to play it and laugh at each other. It's a sort of it's a Supreme Court game. And so, it's great to have built those long-term relationships, and we've all gone in such very different directions. And then the other thing that I would say that I loved about law school was the practical experiences that I had. My very first summer, I worked at Catholic Charities doing immigration work, and I absolutely fell in love with what I was doing and made it my career.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Elizabeth. I loved that law school forced me to identify how I learn and how I process information. I believe that lesson is the foundation for being successful in anything. I'm very confident that if I stopped being a lawyer tomorrow and I decided I wanted to be, I don't know, a product specialist, that I would be able to do it because I have internalized the tools of how to process, dissect, deconstruct, and understand information. What I hated about law school was the sense of feeling alone. Very different than what you're going through, Sydney, because you're literally not with other people. But I felt very alone, and that I couldn't connect with people because it seemed that our interests were so divergent. And that's one of the reasons why I was volunteering at the art museum, and I was actually hanging out with grad students instead of law students. I felt that I couldn't talk about things beyond like the cases, right? Like that's what we were interested in talking about. And I remember I always tell this story, like after orientation the first day, little me like walked up to this guy, talking to him, and for some reason we got into like photography. And I just asked him about, this book that is very important to me and important for people who like photography in general. And he laughed at me. He laughed at me, and he said that, what do I care about photography? I'm going to be a lawyer soon. And in my head, I was like, well, I'm going to be a lawyer too. There's nothing different between you and me. We both went to the orientation. I wanted to, connect with him and to communicate to him what my interests are, which is photography in that case. And I quickly realized that, I would say 75% of the students were like that, where they were very hyper-focused, very intense on cases. They would, go and play board games, which is like, a very competitive thing that they would do. And I was just interested in other things. So I don't know if it's just because of the school that I went to, I should have done more research, or maybe because at the time there really weren't a lot of people who studied any of the creative majors like art, filmmaking, or whatever, who were actually going on to law school. So I felt very, very alone because I felt like I couldn't have those conversations that have always been a part of my life. But I'm very grateful for having attended law school and having learned those tools of learning how to learn and process information. So we've been here for an hour. I just want to thank all of you so much for taking time out of your busy days, whether it's you're studying in law school or you're working in your firm or you're working as a public defender. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and sharing your experiences. You have no idea how much this is going to impact young women who are watching this, who are feeling maybe lost, who are feeling empowered, who are feeling excited about law school and seeing themselves in you. As women attorneys, I think that it's our duty as leaders to share our experiences and share our success so that we can pave the way for more women attorneys, so that number, that 5% number and that 0.2 number, those numbers are eradicated and we don't see them anymore. We see the double digits. I want you guys to just say bye. If you want to share your websites and how people can reach out to you if they want to know more about your experiences, feel free to share. So Ingalls, why don't you go first for all the international attorneys who might be watching you? You want to share your website and your email?
Yes, first of all, thank you, Elektra, for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you all for your time. And if you want to know more about my law firm, and you can see this on a Facebook, Aguiar Law Firm, or Instagram, Doctora Inglés Aguiar _ immigration.
Amina, how can people reach you? And your Facebook group.
Yes, so thank you, Elektra, for having me. It's definitely an honor to be here. For all lawyers in training, pre-law students, you can connect with me on Facebook. My name is, my group, Future Black Lawyers. You can connect with me there. However, you can also connect with me on Instagram at Black Girl at Law. And my personal page is My Lawyer Amina. So it's My Lawyer Amina, Black Girl at Law, and Future Black Lawyers, the group on Facebook.
Everybody who's watching, join your group. She provides valuable resources every single day, and she has weekly Zoom meetings. So please take advantage of Amina and everything that she's sharing. Sydney, where can aspiring law students reach you?
I guess at my email. I guess that would be the easiest way, or maybe my Instagram, which is just Sid St. Pierre with no period. So that's easy too. But thank you so much, Elektra, for having me on this. I feel honored and I'm excited to spend my summer with you. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Elizabeth, how can people reach out to you and learn more about family-based immigration, removal defense, and learn more about not taking the bar exam if they go to law school in Wisconsin?
Yeah, I just posted on this video my email address and our business website. So either of those ways are a great way to find me.
And we didn't talk too much about your law school professor experience. Can you just tell everybody where you're going to be teaching this fall and what class you're teaching?
Yes, I will be teaching immigration law as a seminar or as a workshop at Marquette University Law School in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, my alma mater.
Thank you, everybody, for participating. And this was such an amazing discussion. And please, everyone who's watching, turn into our last roundtable next week, where we're going to talk to women who are from New York, so New Yorkers just like me. And we're going to learn about their experiences living here, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So thank you, everybody, so much for participating. And hopefully we'll see you all next week.
Thanks, Elektra.
Bye.
Thank you, Elektra.